Our device, which is named the Ground Force 360, has been under development for over 20 years. Traditional resistance training takes place almost exclusively in the form of gravity-resisted vertical motion. The marriage of pneumatic resistance with the computer in the Ground Force 360 allows one to experience serious resistance training in the horizontal and rotational planes simultaneously. It is not a bold statement that the most effective training is training in the planes the body actually moves. The Ground Force 360 provides one the option to train with a flexibility that, to our knowledge, has never been offered before. Our design and manufacturing facility is located in Clearwater, Florida. The touchscreen on the Ground Force 360 utilizes a Windows operating system and has 9 separate exercise functions. The concentric resistance and the eccentric force is pneumatically supplied. The eccentric force can be less than, equal to, or greater than the concentric resistance selected. The horizontal movement is variable up to 13 inches per side, and the degrees of rotation can be independently selected per side up to a total of 145 degrees per side. The person you are going to see in this upcoming section is a 310-pound NFL defensive tackle who has trained on the Ground Force 360. We think the movement proficiency he displays would be of interest from a military conditioning standpoint.
Wall hit wall. Hit wall hit. Wall hit wall.
This section demonstrates how easy it is for one to walk into the Ground Force 360 and perform a low-intensity warm-up exercise. This next exercise is best described as a horizontal powerlifting movement. The shoulder rotation settings are at 90 degrees, left turn and right turn, and one should rotate 6 to 8 times to fatigue. To increase the training stimulation, we can vary the eccentric rotational component of each rotation so that, for example, if one can rotate against 80 pounds of resistance 6 times to fatigue, then the Ground Force 360 can eccentrically push back during each rotation at 50% more force, or 120 pounds. We think the training, among other things, effectively duplicates the eccentric forces the legs and torso of a soldier might experience as he goes downhill with a significant load in his hands or attached to his torso. After watching the DVDs from the Rice Speed Symposium and noting the emphasis Peter Wyand and Mike Young put on vertical force production, I am experimenting with some exercises on the Ground Force 360 that include significant vertical movement as well as horizontal and rotational movement. all of which are designed to improve body-wide springiness at ground contact by the feet during any phase or direction of movement. There are virtually unlimited variations as to how the exercises you will see can be done. They can be done ballistically with no eccentric pushback, conventionally with eccentric pushback, or plyometrically. This next section demonstrates an increased range of motion and amplitude of exercise. Obviously, both the generation and control of motion are necessary components of overall conditioning. The ability of users to improve their ability to control force should lead to a reduction of the number and extent of non-contact injuries. This next section demonstrates how the Ground Force 360 accommodates changing vertical and foot positions without adjusting the settings. This upcoming section demonstrates the flexibility of the Ground Force 360 to simultaneously accommodate significant vertical and rotational movement. This upcoming section shows how the gluteus muscles can be recruited on the Ground Force 360 to initiate triple horizontal extension of the hip, knee, and ankle. This upcoming section shows how one can work on ballistic concentric resistance movements. At the end of the forward movement, the resistance ceases and there is no eccentric pushback. This next section demonstrates how one can plyometrically pulse the core on the Ground Force 360. Being able to harness the elastic energy available in the core musculature, we believe, is a key component of rapid and efficient cyclical limb movement. This next section demonstrates how, through the use of a half round on the platform, each leg can be independently recruited to initiate rotational movement. This next section shows Dean Cosgrove in his facility in Tarpon Springs, Florida. Last fall, Dean, who has his PhD in kinesiology, completed his 21st consecutive Ironman in Kona. While Dean is currently focusing on his golf game, the triathletes Dean trains are utilizing the Ground Force 360 in their conditioning programs. The Ground Force 360 has a secondary rotational element that provides clockwise and counterclockwise rotational resistance through the arm and shoulders. And here also, the concentric and eccentric resistance is infinitely variable. In this section, you will see a golfer named Jerry James who uses the Ground Force 360 to help increase both his amount and rate of force production. He has won 2 national long driving championships, and his son, an aspiring baseball pitcher who trains on the Ground Force 360, has his fastball up to 93 miles per hour. Right there. Back a little bit. Good. The key to human locomotion is moving one's center of gravity horizontally. There is simply no other device which accommodates the on-your-feet simultaneous horizontal and rotational movements provided by the Ground Force 360. To our knowledge, there is no equivalent to the training options provided by the Ground Force 360.